Hello and welcome again to the Writer Review. This is Eric Correct Writer, and this week we're going to be taking a look back at the 2000 movie Snatch. Snatch is a comedy crime movie that is directed by Guy Ritchie, and it's produced by Matthew Vaughn, and the script was written by Guy Ritchie, and the score was done by John Murphy. The cinematography was done by Tim Maurice Jones, and it was edited by John Harris. And the stars in this movie are Benecio Del Toro, Dennis Farina, Vinnie Jones, Brad Pitt, Rade Serbedzija, Jason Statham, Lennie James, Alan Ford, Ade, and Stephen Graham. Now, let's see here. Following through the success of Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, Guy Ritchie may have outdone himself here. What usurps this film compared to Ritchie's previous outing is that Snatch has more comedy provided. Even though there are more characters provided, the story is far more easygoing. Our journey begins with a boxing promoter named Turkish, played by Jason Statham, and his business accomplice, Tommy, played by Stephen Graham, are privately talking about diamonds. As the credits get underway in Antwerp, Belgium, we see four thieves going incognito as Jewish men as they make their way to the 8th floor of a building. Once they reach the floor, the thieves now have possession of a diamond that's worth about 84 carats. The leader, Frankie Fourfingers, played by Benecio Del Toro, leads the troop as he delivers the diamond to Doug the Head, played by Mike Reid, who informs it from his cousin who runs a jewelry shop in New York, Cousin Avi, played by Dennis Farina. He has days to spare in London, where he's asked to meet Boris the Blade, played by Rade Serbedzija, to obtain a gun from him and place a bet on a crooked boxing match. Frankie gets handcuffed with his hand with the diamond placed in a briefcase when suddenly the van was hit and he was out cold. Meanwhile, in another subplot, which definitely feels like a Quentin Tarantino film, Turkish and Tommy have signed on a gifted but somewhat brainless boxer named Gorgeous George, played by Adam Fogarty. Turkish and Tommy purchased a caravan from a group of gypsies, which are also called pikeys, oblivious to the fact that the caravan that they purchased easily breaks down the minute they bought it. While demanding for a refund, George demands a fight with One Punch Mickey O'Neill, played by Brad Pitt, and if they win, they will get their refund. But Mickey easily knocks out George, which leads to Turkish negotiating with Bricktop, played by Alan Ford, that they recruit Mickey in exchange for George. Bricktop agrees, but will only do it unless Mickey goes down in the 4th. The third subplot has Boris not being able to get any communication from Frankie, so with the help of Saul, played by Lennie James, as well as Vincent and Tyrone, played by Robbie Gee and Ade, they get in touch with Boris. When they finally reach him, he's been shot unintentionally, and the tribulations come into full effect when the dog enters the fray. Mickey doesn't throw the fight, and his opponent is eventually knocked out in one punch. Bricktop, infuriated, consumes Turkish's money and asks that Mickey fights again. Meanwhile, Boris steals the diamond and kills Frankie, and Saul, Vinny, and Tyrone, along with Bad Boy Lincoln, can't decide how to dispose Frankie's body. Meanwhile, Bricktop tries to arrive at the scene to kill them for taking down his bookies. Abby, along with Doug the Head and Bluetooth Tony, look for Frankie, which leads them to Boris, who they kidnap and steal the diamond. Tommy throws a carton of milk out at the car window that hits Tommy's car, causing it to crash. Boris manages to escape. Tony and Abby are joined at the bar with Saul, Vinnie, and Tyrone, and Tony pretends to be leaving when he notices that their pistols are just replicas. But when Boris arrives on the scene, he is killed by Tony, while Saul and Vinnie leave with the diamond. When Tony confronts them, they lie that the diamond is back at the pawn shop. But then the diamond gets swallowed by the dog. Abby tries to kill the dog, but instead inadvertently kills Tony, and eventually he flees back to New York. Meanwhile, Mickey says that he refuses to box until he gets a better caravan for his mother. But Turkish is now broke. Bricktop rampages Turkish's gambling shop and burns Mickey's mother's caravan as well as the other Pikey's caravan while she's sleeping. A drunken Mickey eventually agrees to a fight, but is so sloshed and Turkish fears that Mickey won't make the 4th round. If he should not live up to the obligation, Bricktop will kill everyone. Turkish, Tommy, Mickey, and the Pikeys. Mickey eventually wins in the 4th round, and Bricktop and his troops are killed by the Pikeys. The movie ends the next morning as Turkish and Tommy are confronted by the cops, but can't explain what they're doing here until Vinnie's dog comes around. Saul and Vinnie are arrested while the dog gets taken to a vet, where the vet extracts a squeaky toy that the dog ate and a diamond that was in there as well. It was the diamond. They contact Doug about selling the diamond, and Doug gets in touch with Abby to return to London. What did I like about this movie? I thought the performances overall were very enjoyable. I think Jason Statham has one-upped himself here, and he plays a more prominent role from the previous film that he was in, the previous Guy Ritchie film, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. I thought Brad Pitt was really fascinating. I think he was the main scene stealer in this movie. He plays the role of the gypsy who speaks incoherently, but, in spite of his incoherent dialogue and his faux accent, it still, was quite a pleasure to listen to. He really turned in a great performance here. Alan Ford truly was delightful as a crime boss, and Benicio Del Toro was remarkable as a thief who suffers from a horrible gambling addiction. These guys really played a spectacular role. I mean, the whole cast, whether they're playing a big role or a small role, they all play it to effect, and that's what really makes this movie really remarkable. Benicio Del Toro, like I said, he was remarkable as a thief who suffers from a horrible gambling addiction. He truly does make up for his role, even though it is very limited. I would say Guy Ritchie's direction has improved greatly from Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. The camera angles, the shots delivered here were more bigger, and I would have to say that the boxing scene was very well produced. The script, which was also done by Guy Ritchie himself, was impressive in both humor and wit. The story may have numerous subplots, but it flows along very easily, and it's not really that hard to follow. It's also very rewarding to see it many times, and it never gets stale. Plus, if you watch it again many times, you will pick up some new things through every viewing. It's good that that 3 cast members from Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels returned a second time through, including Vinnie Jones, who kind of plays a similar role from Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. But I think here he also plays it more effectively here in Snatch than in the previous movie. Like Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, the soundtrack has a variety of songs on this soundtrack, including old school Jewish music like the Allah Nakila Hava to a more modernized, or at least early 21st century music like Oasis. What steps up in Snatch is the quicker pace, and the action never once slows down and never overdoes it with the plot twists. I think between the 2 Guy Ritchie films, this one is definitely much more compelling. The key component to why it's better is that there's more characters you get to know, and I think you have sort of a better understanding to where each one of them is coming from. My only gripe I have with this movie is the length. It's a bit too short. And it's not to say that it's a burden to the film, but many of the characters who I enjoyed did not get enough screen time. So I was hoping it would have been much longer. You know how most naysayers sometimes, whine and complain saying, "Oh, it's too long." Well, this time, I say this movie is too short. It should have been maybe 2 hours and 25 minutes long. But I'm not saying like this was, no big deal. It just could have been maybe 2 hours and 15 minutes long, just to further enhance the character development, because there's so many characters in this film, all very interesting, all very unique, all very compelling, but all very limited. Something that's probably the only nitpicking I have about this movie. This movie overall stands out for a near-perfect film. Even for a heist movie, the performances and the script stood out quite well. The plot is enigmatic, as one subplot overlaps with another, like in Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. Even though the setting of the movie is in London, England, also a little bit in Antwerp, Belgium. But, wouldn't it be cool if it was actually set in New York? What more can I say? Watch this film. I guarantee you won't be disappointed. If I was to give this movie a score out of 10, I would say, with the exception of the movie being too short, I think it deserves a 9.5. I really think, Guy Ritchie has outdone himself. And, he's had a few red herrings in the past. But I think Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels was... I'm not putting that movie down, but I just think Snatch was a much more fun movie to watch, and I highly recommend it. Would I recommend it to a younger audience? I don't think I could recommend it to anybody who's under the age of 13. I would have to recommend people between the ages of 14 and over to see this movie. There's a lot of violence. There is a lot of grotesque scenes. And there's also an abundance of swearing. The fuck count was about 159, and there was a lot of other obscene, derogatory words in the movie, so, for people who are squeamish about obscene language, I wouldn't recommend you guys to see it. But aside from that, I enjoyed myself, and I highly recommend this movie for those who just like to be entertained with high quality action, a lot of frightening, intense scenes. The intensity level is really up there. And I'm sure the average cinema goers will really have a fun time seeing it. I saw it in cinema 14 years ago. I've seen it many times after that, pick up new things as I go along, and it never has dried out. So I would say I highly recommend people, mature audiences, to come and see this movie. I guess that ends my writer review for this week. Thank you very much for listening. Please write in. I would really appreciate that. And I'll be back again with another review. Until next time, take care of yourselves, and goodbye, everyone.